Have you ever noticed how a single drop of rain vanishes into the ocean, yet, without it, the sea would be incomplete? So too are you, a note in the eternal melody of existence. Thoughts rise and fall like tides, emotions pass like weather through the vast sky of the mind. But you are not the storm, you are the stillness beneath it. Life does not demand that we conquer every feeling, only that we witness them without becoming them. The world is not here to break you, but to shape you, to temper your spirit like fire does to steel. And in the quiet spaces between chaos and clarity, there is a voice, not of noise, but of knowing. That voice is your essence. Ancient, undisturbed, eternal. To hack your mind is not to control it, but to return to it. Not to silence emotion, but to hear the divine rhythm beneath it. You are not lost. You are being composed. There is a strange illusion we all fall into, one that begins so early we forget we were ever outside of it. It is the belief that what we feel is who we are. That if we are angry, we must be an angry person. If we are afraid, then fear must be the truth of our being. We fuse with emotion so completely, so instantly, that we're forgetting the storm is not the sky, and your thoughts are not the one thinking them. But let's look more closely. When sadness arrives, when it drapes itself across your chest like a wet cloak, do you notice how part of you still watches it? When anger bursts forth, blazing in your veins, isn't there some quiet corner of your mind that observes it, even as it burns? That watcher, that silent space that doesn't flinch, doesn't judge, doesn't run, that is you. Emotions are weather. You are the sky they pass through. The Stoics knew this, not just as an idea, but as a lived truth. To master the mind is not to become cold or unfeeling, but to remember that you are more than the feelings you host. Anger, jealousy, joy, the despair, they're all guests knocking at the door of your consciousness. The practice is not to deny them, nor to serve them tea. It is simply to meet them at the threshold, acknowledge their arrival, and decide, consciously, whether they may enter and how long they may stay. You see, when you believe you are your emotions, you become a slave to them. You lash out in a moment of rage and regret it seconds later. You spiral in anxiety and forget that most of what you fear is not happening, just being rehearsed. But when you pause, just a breath, just a moment, you create space. And in that space, the illusion breaks. You see the emotion as something arising, not something you are. Have you ever watched a candle flicker in a still room? There is such fragility in the flame, and yet it persists. So too with your awareness. It does not fight the dark. It simply shines. That awareness, when reclaimed from emotion, becomes your anchor. It becomes your freedom. Now, this doesn't mean detachment in the cold sense. It means presence. Deep, unwavering presence. To feel fully without being overwhelmed. To cry without shame. To laugh without clinging. To be angry without violence. You become a channel, not a container. And this shift, this returning to the observer, changes everything. Because when you realize you are the one watching, not the waves themselves, you no longer fear being swept away. And isn't that the beginning of wisdom? To witness yourself without distortion. To stand beneath the waterfall of life and not drown, but drink. People often ask, how do I master my mind? And perhaps the answer is simpler than they expect. You don't need to control every thought. You don't need to eliminate every emotion. You just need to stop mistaking them for you. Let the mind do what the mind does. Let emotions rise and fall. Your job is to remember the vast, quiet space behind it all. The part of you that has never moved, never changed, and never needed anything to be at peace. The clouds will come, the storms will rage, but you are the sky. And the sky, my dear friend, never apologizes for the weather. Pain has a peculiar way of entering our lives without knocking. It arrives not as a guest, but as an intruder, unexpected, often unwelcome, and yet, strangely, necessary. We spend so much of our time trying to avoid it, to numb it, to outrun it. But what if pain wasn't a punishment? What if it was the sculptor's chisel, shaping the raw stone of our being into something we cannot yet see? You see, suffering isn't chaos. It only feels chaotic because we haven't yet learned to listen. Beneath every ache is an invitation, not to collapse, but to awaken. The Stoics knew this well. They did not run from hardship. They sat with it. Not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they saw its alchemy. Fire does not burn the gold. It reveals it. When something shatters in your life, a relationship, a dream, a version of yourself, it's easy to believe something has gone wrong. But the Stoic path invites you to ask a different question. What is this trying to show me? Pain, when you really pay attention, becomes a teacher more honest than comfort ever could be. It has no interest in keeping your illusions alive. It strips you down, not to destroy you, but to return you to something more true, more essential. We often speak of becoming stronger, wiser, more grounded. But what do we think cultivates such qualities? It isn't pleasure. It isn't ease. It is difficulty. It is standing face to face with something that overwhelms you and learning slowly by breath that you are not as fragile as you thought. The soul grows in the dark just as seeds do. And the soil is sorrow, lost, fear, turned over and softened by the hands of time. You are not broken when you suffer. You are being shaped. The cracks you feel are not flaws. They're entry points for light. Every time you fall apart, there is a chance to fall into something deeper, something unshakable. But only if you stop resisting, only if you choose to participate in your transformation. And let me be clear, this isn't about glorifying pain. It's about understanding it, feeling it fully without drowning in it. It's about no longer seeing discomfort as the enemy, but as a necessary movement in the symphony of your unfolding. Think of the cello. It wails, it moans, it trembles. But it is precisely through its tension that beauty arises. So ask yourself, what parts of you were born in fire? What virtues emerged from your most difficult seasons? Did patience come from your success or from waiting in the quiet agony of not knowing? Did compassion come from being celebrated or from remembering what it felt like to be unseen? These qualities don't grow in the light. They are forged in shadow. You're not here to bypass suffering. You're here to learn its language, to discover the wisdom it conceals. Because when you stop seeing pain as an interruption and start seeing it as part of the path, your life opens in a new way. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start asking, what is this preparing me for? And just like that, suffering changes form. It softens. It teaches. It leaves gifts in its wake. And you realize, not intellectually, but in your bones, that nothing has been wasted. That every broken piece was part of the design. That every fall was a step in your ascent. And maybe that is the deepest truth of all, that what you thought would destroy you was actually your becoming. The fire was never there to burn you. It was there to reveal what cannot be burned. We spend so much of our lives trying to wrestle the world into submission. We tighten our grip, draw our plans in ink, and attempt to bend every outcome to our will. And yet, how much of it do we really control? The weather shifts without our consent. People come and go as they please. Fortunes rise and fall like tides. Still we cling, we resist, we rage against the current. But what if peace doesn't come from controlling the wind, but from learning how to set the sail? The Stoics offered a quiet, radical truth. There are things within your power and things beyond it. And your suffering begins the moment you confuse the two. You see, the world will do what it does, regardless of your opinions about it. The rain won't stop because you're upset about it. A person won't love you more deeply just because you ache for them to. Life moves according to its own rhythm. The only thing you truly possess is how you meet it. And in that simple realization, there is immense freedom. You don't need to micromanage reality. You only need to manage yourself. Your thoughts, your reactions, your breath, these are yours. The rest, a dance you're part of, but not directing. And when you finally stop trying to choreograph the whole universe, you begin to feel a new kind of stillness. Not the stillness of doing nothing, but the stillness of right alignment. A serenity that arises when you live in accordance with nature rather than in conflict with it. We've been taught that control is power, but that kind of control, the anxious, obsessive kind, is actually weakness. It reveals our fear of what we cannot predict. True strength, stoic strength, is the ability to let go without falling apart, to trust the unfolding even when you don't understand it, to act where you can and surrender where you must. Imagine standing at the edge of a vast river. You can scream at the water. You can try to push it back with your hands. Or you can learn to step into the current and move with it gently, mindfully, not passively, not giving up, but flowing with wisdom. This doesn't mean you become indifferent. On the contrary, you care even more. But without the desperation, you take action not because you need to control the outcome, but because it's the right thing to do. You speak with honesty, even if your voice shakes. You love without possession. You strive, but you're not owned by ambition. You let life be life. The paradox is this: when you stop trying to control everything, you gain mastery over yourself. And that changes how you experience the world. Obstacles become teachers. Delays become pauses in the rhythm, not punishments. You begin to see that the timing you fought against may have saved you, that the silence you feared was giving you space to grow. And over time, a quiet trust develops, not in fate as some blind force, but in the deeper intelligence of the unfolding. The same intelligence that turns seeds into trees and breathes the stars into motion. It's within you too. You don't have to steer everything. You just have to be aligned. And when your inner world is in harmony, even if the outer world is chaos, you find something rare: peace without condition, strength without aggression, joy without needing things to go your way. You become like the ocean, vast, deep, undisturbed by surface winds. So let the world do what it does. Let others make their choices. Let the river run. You are not here to force the current. You are here to remember you are water. Emotion, in its raw form, is neither good nor bad. It simply is. Like a wave rising from the ocean, it comes with force, with energy, sometimes with beauty, sometimes with violence. But the trouble begins when we mistake that wave for the whole ocean, when we let it steer the ship, define the story, dictate our actions. And in that moment, we stop being free. We become reactors, pulled here and there by whatever feeling happens to rise within us. But emotion is not meant to be your master, it's meant to be your messenger. Fear, for example, isn't always an enemy. It tells you where your edge is. It whispers of risk, of danger, but also of growth. Anger, it signals a boundary crossed, a value violated. Sadness tells you what matters. Even joy, fleeting as it is, reminds you of the depth of your capacity to love and to feel. But these are signals, not commands. The wisdom lies not in obeying them blindly, but in pausing long enough to ask, what are you trying to tell me? Most people, when they feel something strong, react almost instantly. Anger turns into words that can't be unsaid. Fear becomes paralysis. Envy morphs into quiet resentment. But if we could only slow down, just a breath between the feeling and the response, we'd reclaim an incredible power, the ability to choose. That breath, that space, is where Stoicism lives, not in the denial of emotion, but in the discipline to hold it gently like a stone in the palm and examine it with curiosity rather than judgment. And in doing so, you discover that your emotions aren't trying to destroy you. They're trying to show you something. They're not threats. They're signals coming up from the depths of your unconscious, asking to be heard, not worshipped. But the problem is, we often identify with them too quickly. We become the anger, the sadness, the jealousy. We don't just say, I feel anxious. We say, I am anxious. And in that shift of language, we attack ourselves to the passing weather as if it were the sky itself. You are not the voice in your head. You are the one listening to it. And the same is true of your heart. You are not your rage or your regret. You are the one who sees them, names them, and chooses the next step. That witnessing presence, that space of awareness is where your freedom lies. Now, none of this is about becoming cold or detached. On the contrary, it's about becoming deeply attuned. So attuned that you no longer let every ripple of emotion dictate your direction. You become like a tree in the wind, moving yes, feeling yes, but rooted. It takes practice, it takes presence. But slowly, you start to recognize the early signals, the quickening of the pulse, the tightening in the chest, and instead of reacting, you breathe, you listen. You say, here you are again. And in doing so, you create the space to respond wisely rather than impulsively. And that shift from reaction to reflection is where mastery begins. You stop being dragged by the wild horses of the heart. You start guiding them. It doesn't mean you won't feel. You'll feel deeply, but you won't be ruled by it. You'll honor the message without obeying the madness. Eventually, you come to see emotion for what it truly is: sacred energy, meant to awaken you, not imprison you. And when you live from that place, your mind becomes clearer, your relationships deeper, and your path steadier. You no longer fear your feelings. You learn from them. You dance with them, but you no longer confuse the music for the dancer. Emotion may speak, but only you decide who holds the pen.